Okay, everybody, I'm here with Poonan Guru Mark, Crafty Dog Denny. We're going to talk about the 2019 East Coast Camp. What's going on, Guru?
Yeah, I'm very excited about this. Focus of this year's camp is going to be a little different. Before we had Top Dog and Lonely Dog, obviously the focus there was on real contact stick fighting, and I started introducing my Chupacabra knife system. And so DBMAA is three basic areas: the real contact stick fighting, the Collie Tudo, and the die less often. And there's a tremendous synergy and interaction between the three areas. And so this year the focus is going to be more on the knife aspect of die less often. That's going to be Lloyd the Young and me. And setting the stage there for that, I remember a story from the early days of the UFC, and a lot of people whose martial arts were faring poorly in the original events. One of the things they would commonly say was, well, you wouldn't do that against more than one person. You wouldn't want to go to the ground. And Rorion Gracie had a column in Black Belt magazine, which at that point was the definitive magazine. And he said, you can't fight one person. What are you worried about more than one person? And, the wit there is obvious, but for me, the answer was obvious. If there's more than one person, weapons are coming into play. He was answering from what I call young male ritual hierarchical mindset. And that is most martial arts. Well over 90%, I would guess, is about young males competing. Whereas Dog Brother Martial Arts, the system is about walk as a warrior for all your days. And so we have the ritual space, and that's where we can test ourselves honorably in the adrenal state. We have the empty hand, where we're looking to adrenalize the empty hand, the weaponry movements into empty hands, and then having only one idiom of movement, that of the empty hands and the weaponry are one and the same. Then when we're in a die less often situation, we don't have to determine whether we're using an empty hand structure or a weaponry structure. And we just simply have one way of moving. And in the nanoseconds, which often determine the outcome in a die less often situation, I think that's something of tremendous benefit. And so, and walk as a warrior for all your days also includes the idea that I think, something I've been thinking about recently, is as we get older, we are less and less interested in young male ritual hierarchical combat, and we train more and more for basically, what if somebody forces a situation on me? So we're increasingly interested in situations where lethality is on the menu, something that might happen. And, so we want to have good rules of engagement. I've been working on updating the rules of engagement. What I have at the moment is this, starting with Will Rogers, I never met a man I didn't like, meaning we always start out with a positive, friendly attitude with people. And then there's a famous poem from the wall of a church in the medieval ages, Desiderata or something like that. One of the lines is, so far as is possible, be on good terms with all men. So even if somebody's abrasive, if you can find a way to make it work out, it's like you have a guy in your martial art class. He's kind of annoying, but if you can figure out how to, work well with him, that's to your benefit. Then good manners is good policy. You never know who you're messing with. What you think of me is none of my business. If you allow insults to somebody determine when you fight by insulting you, you've surrendered a tremendous amount of control. Then you have avoid the 3 S's, stupid people in stupid places doing stupid things. And then you have, is this really worth signing over your house to your lawyer to pay the bills and going to jail over? And if somebody gets past all of those questions and you're older, you're in a fight where chances are it's a very serious situation. You've been cornered into that fight. There's somebody you have to defend. You can't run away and leave your family or, innocent people behind, whatever it is. And so it's in that context that I'm coming to knife. And in this regard, Lloyd the Young of South Africa, he now lives in Poland, in Warsaw. Lloyd the Young and I have known each other, I guess, about 10 years now, although with his being in South Africa, we fell out of contact for many of those years. And then a couple of years ago, things reconnected and I brought him in. I hosted him for a seminar here in LA. And he comes out of the Piper system, which is a South African system, the movements of which, I hope I don't massacre the history and the lineage here too much, but comes out of the Nguni, N-G-U-N-I. The Nguni stick fighting would be the Zulus and some of the other tribes of that area. And so the movement is there, but the Piper system, it's a very dark system. It's a criminal system. It's a thug system. It's a prison system. And so it is a predatory system. You may remember that I talk about the different forms of aggression: territory, hierarchy, reproduction, male for the female, females in defense of the young. And in the case of humans, predatory behavior. The predator, a lion does not eat a lion, and that's not defined as aggression in this area of science. But the predatory behavior of a lion hunting a gazelle, in the case of humans, is applied human to human. The criminal says, give me your money, or, give me whatever it is that I'm going to take. And so that's a predatory behavior. And so the Piper system, it's a predatory system. They have a knife and they're choosing people who don't. And in a certain sense, well, what's the trick of beating somebody without a knife when you have one? And at the same time, there's something there. The movement is extraordinary. It's incredibly deceptive. And it has a very African quality to it that it's very different. Lloyd's very articulate about all of this. And so for me, the question became, as I look at the deceptiveness of the movement, that fits into Dog Brother Martial Arts theory of 7 ranges, the first range, snake range, before contact. And you define the moment of contact. So deceptive behavior in your movement, hard to read movement, is a very high value in the logic of DBMAA. And Lloyd and I began working together, and we have developed what we call the RTW, Rapid Transience Weaponcraft System, which is an overlap of certain parts of his Piper. He also has an additional subsystem that he calls Tripwire, his Piper Tripwire, and my Chupacabra system. And what happens with a lot of people in martial arts is they're very much guided by this notion of 1 versus 1, some sort of knife duel in their knife training. He has a knife. Well, what if he has a knife and I have a knife? Then you do this, then he does that, and blah 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 blah. But I'm very big on asking, what is the problem being solved? And the Chupacabra system, for me, it's solving, what do you do with somebody who is younger, bigger, stronger, and meaner, and all you have is a little knife? I think about 2 incidents in my life. One story I've related about my conversation with Don Pentecost, the author of Put 'em Down, Take 'em Out, Knife Fighting Techniques from Folsom Prison. And conversation got to where I could ask him the question. I said to him, what technique do you use? And he says, technique? There's no technique. You steel yourself up, you pump him until he's dead, and then you bind your wounds. And there are people like that. And I had a person like that on the doorstep of my home one day. I came home and there's this big Samoan guy covered with prison tattoos, very muscular, like he had been lifting for 10 years. And I said, what you doing in my phone and electric box? He says, are you so-and-so? I said, no. He says, you sure? I said, yeah, I'm sure. He says, well, I'm looking for so-and-so. He owes some people some money. And I said, who are you working for? And he looks at me in a very serious way and he says, Oz. This is back when HBO was running that prison series, Oz. So he's letting me know I'm out of prison and I'm a bill collector now, and I'm covered with prison tattoos, and you'd best be afraid of me. And in point of fact, inside I did my best not to show that. And there was a conversation from there, and I respected him and he respected me. And as he went back to his car, I got a pen and a pad of paper, and he could see in the side view mirror that I was writing down his license plate. So if anything odd were to happen subsequent to this visit of his, I would have a license plate number to give the police, and that was the end of it. But I use him in my training to say, what if I had to come forward against such an individual? What if all I had was my little 3-inch blade everyday carry pocket folder? He's not going to be impressed. Indeed, he's going to be annoyed, and his attitude is probably going to be, I'm going to knock this guy out, and I'm going to stomp his head flat for having had the temerity to pull a knife on me. And so this is for me, this is how I conceive the question being solved. In the starting point of Chupacabra is, how do you go forward frontally against someone who is younger, bigger, stronger, meaner? And he may be wearing clothes that affect the effectiveness of the knife. Not everywhere is a warm climate. It's easy to forget that here in southern Los Angeles. As we study the Filipino martial arts, the Philippines, it's all warm, there's no heavy clothing, but here in America, there's lots of places where people wear heavier clothes according to the season. And so expanding the concept, the system's also about, you can make yourself a porcupine, what I sometimes call Saint Foom, the acronym for stay the fornicate off of me. You're a porcupine, a pack of jackals is around you, and you want to have a structure where you're going, stay away, and then some guy blindsides you, and or you have it some sort of a mob situation, you have some sort of close quarter situation where a guy who's physically very much your superior is he's on you, and you manage to pull your knife in the chaos of the fight, what we call what if, weapon access during the fight, and now you're fighting. And we've seen with the surveillance footage that's everywhere on YouTube and so forth these days, very often people don't know that they've been cut or stabbed. And that somebody could even be mortally wounded and not know it, or they can be wounded and be really annoyed that you've wounded them. And so all of these things are kind of the background context for what I see as the problem being solved by the RTW system. It's very much influenced by John Boyd. Something that Lloyd has turned me on to is the theories of John Boyd, who's known mostly for the OODA loop, but he goes much deeper than that. There's much more than that. But it originated in the jet dogfights of the Korean War. And so if you think of two planes simultaneously moving around, each looking to solve the other, that's very much like the movement before contact in a weaponry fight. And so the theories are incredibly applicable. And so when we go to rapid transients, we are transitioning between different things in order to dominate the OODA loop and to get him to fold in upon himself. So in recognition of the influence of Boyd on the way that we think, with this material, we call it rapid transients weaponcraft. So the camp is going to be Dogzilla, the legend himself, and who's been leading the Hawaii clan. And even though they're out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean all by themselves, they've been a very strong clan. That the Dog Brother spirit is strong there. It's going to be Lloyd and me, and we are going to be introducing to the world the rapid transients, the weaponcraft, the RTW system. And having Dogzilla there is going to be very fortuitous, because he's got an entire career as a federal corrections officer, leading the I should learn the proper name for it. I just call it the special events team. When there's a riot going on or somebody has to be dragged out of a cell or something, I tell the story of the questions that he would come to class with. Mark, what do you do if you got a guy who's about 5'10", 240, all muscle? He's naked, he's covered with soap, and he's got a tape razor blade clenched between his teeth, and he wants to bear hug you and rip up your neck. And I go, what happened at work today? And so he comes from a depth of real world experience, as he had been a cook in the Marines, which led to his running the kitchen as a corrections officer. As a cook in the Marines, the battle cry was death from within, which always chuckled me. But if you're there in the kitchen day in, day out, it's a very weapon-rich environment, and you're surrounded by these guys who every day they're studying what you're doing, and if a riot ever comes down, they think they got you sized up. And Mike said something one day that always stayed with me. He says, for me, Kali is what gets me through a room full of men and out the door when they're trying to kill me and or rape me, in either order. And so he has, it's not young male ritual hierarchical combat for Mike. He is preparing for moving through a room full of men. And the RTW system is for moving through a mob, moving through a pack of jackals, moving through a cranky crowd of scurrilous scum. And so the camp is going to be Lloyd and me, and it's going to be Mike. I think it's going to be very, very interesting. When people come to the camp, this is now the 5th year, we have people coming every year. I want them to go home with a taste of a different facet of the system. So, each year is going to be different. And with Lloyd, there's something more, which is very much worth noting, is the movement. Movement is movement. Guru Asano sometimes explains the meaning of the word Kali as a combination of kumut lichud, meaning the study of movement. Kali is simply, how do you move well? And there's an African way of moving that the Western raised person can have trouble accessing. Lloyd's a remarkable teacher in this. The mobility exercises he has, and I feel that I am moving much better, thanks to, the stuff that Lloyd has shared with me, and that there's an additional level of fluidity and deceptiveness to my movement, and to be able to improve one's level, to raise one's level. I'm 66 now. That's a pretty good trick. So that's, I think it's not just the knife. It's also with Lloyd, you're going to discover how to move. So I'm very excited about what's going to be happening at the camp.
So does Lloyd have a section in that? I know you do, but does Lloyd have a section in there that, what if we can't get to our knife? Does it also apply there?
Well, there is such material, but in this camp, the weapon access during fight, there'll be some moments where that gets covered, or, how do you carry your knife and so forth. But I think the bulk of it's going to be, this is how you use it.
Because you're just now introducing it.
Yeah. And it's a good question, but I think the bulk is going to be on the movement, the deceptiveness, the blitzkrieg structure. Lloyd's very sharp. His tripwire system is about how you react to an attack. There's action beats reaction. His tripwire is how reaction beats action. And so he has ways of setting yourself up that you're not going to be reacting out of your neocortex, but out of your cerebellum. And it's something you're only in that state for a very brief amount of time, but it's a very natural, faster processing amount of time. When you stumble, whatever it is that you do so that you don't fall, that's not your logical mind thinking it out. That's your cerebellum. And so how do you go in and out of that? So in the very high adrenal circumstances of when knives are about, or when you got someone really dangerous and bad breath space in front of you and they're trying to intimidate you. So that's his tripwire system. But the Piper system is a reverse edge system, and the not reverse edge, is an ice pick grip system, as is my Chupacabra system. So there was a natural synergy as the two fit together there. So for the Chupacabra, I was taking the Bondo principle of the live hand never goes in front of the blade. I was taking Pakiti Tertia's double force, where the hand is on the wrist, and there's some other things in there too. And we're blending that with the Piper movement. And there's also one more structure, which Lloyd has, which is for if you have a mob of people who've got you pinned up against the wall and they're beating on you, what do you do? And we added a knife to it, and we call it Full Metal Elbows. And it's something I'd never seen before, and it's really ingenious for if you're in the chaos of mob everywhere. What do you do? If you're trying to do this kind of stuff, limbs get grabbed and you've lost control of yourself just because you're getting pulled in all these different directions. And it's an ingenious solution that he has there. So the way that he puts things together with his understanding of how the body works, when I was working with Chris Gizzi of the Green Bay Packers, his expression was going nitrous. He said to me one day, he says, "Mark, how do you think he would do against one of the NFL guys?" And I went, "Gosh, I don't know." He says, "Well, they're able to go nitrous for about 45 seconds. He says, if you can survive that 45 seconds, you'd be fine. But then that's the question." And so in the association forum, which is very much a collective effort. It's not just me pontificating there in the forum. We've been exploring the body's different systems. So what Chris, calls going nitrous, there's the system of the all-out sprint, where basically you can go, say, maybe 10, 12 seconds. And then there's a system of roughly the quarter mile, like 45 seconds, 60 seconds, maybe longer if you're slower. But the system that you're accessing when you're going at that intensity, and then you have the aerobic system, and then you have your walking around every day kind of a system. And so, how long what can you bring when you're going nitrous? And real important, how long does it take you to recover before you can do that again? And so the material is being put together in a way that keeps all of these things in mind. So in my own training, some of you may know, I've been relating how every Saturday I go over to the football field at the high school up the block, and every other week I just do light agility drills and reconditioning, rebuilding strength coming out of my hip replacement. And then every other week is I work my 100-yard dash. So 5 years ago, before my hip issues arose, I was in the 15s. Coming back, my first time back about 6 weeks ago, I was 18. The next week, 1765. And then 2 weeks after that, I was at 16.8. So when I go this Saturday, I'm going to be looking to beat 16.8. But the point is not to impress with the times. They're not impressive. They're not bad for a guy my age. But the point is, I know what my burst is. I know how hard to push myself. And I know how much I got. And I know what would be too panicked. And I might pull a muscle or, gas out too soon. So you need to know what you can do. You need to know what you have left. And I think so knowing where you're at going nitrous, I think, is an important part of training, particularly for die less often situations. It's not like you're settling in for, okay, I'm in jiu-jitsu class and we're going to roll for the next 40 minutes. It's a different thing, different question.
I'm intrigued by this. This is very different feeling from the other camps you've done. And I know you're doing that on purpose. That's pretty cool. You're really going heavy into the DLO material this time.
Yeah, the DLO material, as I travel around and meet people and, people come to LA to train with me, there's a lot of people who tell me they've been very influenced by the DLO material. I think being around Dogzilla has been a good influence on me. I've learned more from him than he realizes. But, you look at that footage of him in the promo clip for Die Less Often 1 where he's demonstrating the prison sewing machine. I have had so many people come to me and say, that changed my training for knife.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they're trying to tap that.
Yeah, he's coming to pump you until you're dead, and then he'll bind his wounds. That's, so where he's lived for the last 25 years. Every day he goes to work, he has to deal with the possibility that somebody's going to be bringing that against him. That's why he can imitate it so well. He understands exactly what it is. And so I'm very much looking forward to, having him sort of sit there and interject his stories and his questions and his wisdom as Lloyd and I are introducing the RTW.
What I respect here about this is that there's just so much stuff. It's funny, like people make fun of, like some people putting up the BS, like or what do they call it, bullshito, stupid defense things. Hey, I'm going to do this against a knife, but then you see somebody like Dogzilla doing, that sewing machine, like directly in your face like that. It's like, okay, not only are you going to stand there and freeze and be horrified by that coming at you, but even if you do have some training, can you handle the adrenaline dump that's going to give you, and then the technical part? And like, there's so much going on. I like the idea that you're realistically going to address that, because boy, that's a special kind of training to be able to handle something like that. What if it's not even somebody as intimidating as he is? Like, there's just so many situations where, please be real about it. Because there's just so many times where it's just BS. You're just not going to do all that stuff.
Well, it was the conversation with Don Pentecost that gave me some moments of Satori, several moments of Satori. And one of them was I was looking, like, his wrists were a lot bigger than mine. And so, like, you got it. Well, that's really crude. He's just grabbing the knife and he's just like this. And one of the things you realize is when someone's in that kind of adrenal state, the knife is about 90 degrees to the forearm. That's what naturally happens. And so they sort of naturally tend to go long arm. But what happens now when somebody's more coming in like this? What if somebody's coming in like this? And so you look at the strength, the power, the intensity, the forward pressure. And so it was out of that understanding that instead of looking to taking the knife tapping from Pakiti Tersha, this kind of a movement, that I put the other arm in there for the power assist of dealing with the first movement, with the idea of stopping it from getting to the other side. It's the first movement is often easy enough to deal with. It's the second, third, and fourth ones that are the problem. So the more you can shut it down, and the more you can the more efficiently you can transition from visual reflexes to tactile reflexes, where you're monitoring the limb, that pickup of the transition to that is of great value. And they're like, okay, now I'm here. What do I do from here? But it gives you a way of thinking and organizing in your mind what's going on. And so much of it is that. I remember when I first started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, 1990, 3 years before the UFC, and I was bringing it to Dog Brothers Fighting. I looked at some of my fight footage from before there, and I realized there were all kinds of moments where if I had known what to do, there was an easy solution, but I didn't recognize it. And it's like, okay, so when someone's charging me and knocks me on my ass, throw my legs around the waist. Now I've got game. I mean, the simplicity of that thought in real chaos is really valuable. So the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gave a matrix of positions. You're clear on what your mission is. And when I teach fighting, I start very often with double stick. Okay, when he's got two sticks here, he's got two sticks, 1 and 1, or he's got two here. He might be fighting 1 and 1, or that might represent moments of the basic open 4 count. And so you start, does he have his left foot forward? Does he have his right foot forward? And you start being able to organize things and like, okay, single stick, does he chamber here? Does he float around in front here? Is he here set for a roof block? Is he here elbow fulcrum focusing on backhands? And you have a little checklist of things to do. For each of those, you don't have to think as much. Thinking is slow. If you have it already worked out, like, I'm getting knocked on my ass, legs around the waist. Oh, we're rolling around, legs around the waist when I'm on top. That's mount position. If I'm on back, that's guard position. This is side control. If you recognize these things, it helps you. And so in the speed and the nanoseconds of a knife action, that's even more valuable. As he wanted, because people will tend to do in the adrenal state certain things. And so if you can recognize those structures, and instead of going, you mentioned freezing. What are the 5 responses to danger? Fight, flight, freeze, posture, submit. Most people know fight or flight, but the freeze is real common, real common. Adrenal dump, I don't know what to do. I'm thinking, I don't have a solution yet. But if he's like, okay, he is in Mongo with the knife. He has got that primal grip here. It's 90 degrees. He's long arm. Okay, well, a good knife fighter would know to do this, but he's not. Primal probabilities first. He's giving you this. So, like, how do you get in there? How do you shut down the arm? How do you, what are the things that you find? And so, and that's the anti-knife, but then there's also the like, okay, how do we effectively use the knife? And that's the RTW, which is how do we use the knife against somebody younger, bigger, stronger? What if that Samoan convict bill collector didn't believe me that I wasn't the guy who owed the money? What would I have done? We look at the, the various situations, each of us will have his own scenario. somebody who's black might think of Ku Klux Klan. I'm Jewish, I might think of Nazis. I'm right wing, I might think of Antifa. Somebody who's left wing, they're going to think of Nazis. I mean, whoever you think of as, it could be, race riot. It could be, whatever scenario you want to come up with of, this chaotic situation of many hostile people, a cranky crowd of scurrilous scum. It seems to me that a well-rounded martial art that offers to walk as a warrior for all your days should have something that you can walk away from the training with, knowing if something ever goes down, this is how you use a little pocket knife to effectively be a porcupine, that no one wants to, get in close, or that if you have to clear your way through a mob or get a mob off of you, this is what you do.
This is when things have gone very bad.
Yeah, but it seems that the more clearly that you have that in your understanding, the easier it's going to be to deflect situations that might be escalating that way, because if I get cornered, I got this. So I don't have to, get feisty earlier in the process. I can deflect more.
You just touched on something that I think is kind of important. The point is not to do this, to pull that trigger. It's if you're training like this, you'll see it. You're more likely to see it unless you get surprised. But you're more educated, like you said. So the point is not to get into this and be.
Well, that's why I started with the rules of engagement.
Right.
The rules of engagement, and at the same time, it also means that if somebody goes past those rules of engagement, and I think they're pretty good, then it becomes easier for you to pull the trigger, because I'm cornered now. This is a person who's walked past every one of these. Every one of my rules of engagement, I try like, hey, how you doing, my friend? And you're like, fuck you. Oh, I'm sorry you're having a bad day. I fucked your mother last night. Hope you had a good time. I mean, what you think of me is none of my business, right? Or, you see things going sideways, stupid people in stupid places doing stupid things. You already have it worked out. Time to go. You don't go, hey, I'm going to stand here with my camera and see if I get something for World Star,
Right. Now,
there's a different thing, which is I don't want to put myself on the line, but I want to have good evidence for the police. That's an honorable thing. But, just out of sort of entertainment value, no, probably better to move on.
Right. Agreed. That's awesome. Well, I really think this is going to be a really cool camp, a very heavy camp.
His movement is something. I mean, it's, you and I were talking before we turned the camera on that, there's some footage that, we'll put on as part of this here for people to see, but the movement is of a different order. And to be able to grab some of that for yourself, change your level, that's valuable.
Awesome.
And the wisdom of Dogzilla, both as, the leader of the Hawaii clan of the Dog Brothers, and original Dog Brother, Council of Elder of the Dog Brother tribe, leader of the Hawaii clan, 25 years or 30 years as a corrections officer on the special events team. The amount of wisdom that this guy has and the ability, to be around him, it's going,
and quite a bit of fight experience too.
Yes. And I should also mention guard dog Ryan. We're at his school. The Thursday night is going to be his jiu-jitsu class. We're going to be doing some stick grappling there, and there's going to be a lot of good people in the room. And I should also mention that it's of all levels. One of the things that I'm always very proud of is that people who come in with less experience, they're welcomed in, and we have ways of training that everybody feels useful, and no one should feel like they're slowing down the others, and that sort of stuff. It's it's an open, friendly thing.
And you mentioned guard dog Ryan Gruen. I just was with him in California at the CSW camp and filmed him doing an epic 20-minute roll with one of our other black belts. He is really good. So if you
Yeah.
guys can make that class on
He won
Thursday,
some black belt tournament recently,
yeah,
and
his game is
you don't
good.
get a black belt from Eric Paulson very lightly.
No, Ryan's really good. He's got good game, but also he's got that other quality you just mentioned for new people. It is not a meat market for him. Like he doesn't train on you. He will train to your level, and people trained under him will train to your level. You have a good experience with him, but the guy does know what he's doing.
Oh yeah,
Really good. So look at that bonus day. You get some BJJ material on Thursday as a bonus, and then you have the full.
Well, it's going to be stick grappling, not BJJ.
Okay, so stick grappling.
So that'll be Ryan and me together.
Okay.
And passing on the torch a little bit as I gotten older and slower. And also, you should mention that he's made the school available for people who want to sleep on the mats instead of paying for a hotel or whatever. And it's just a good time. It's a good friendly thing.
Awesome. June 6th through the 9th.
Yes.
2019 Central PA Mixed Martial Arts.
It's the Thursday night. You don't have to be there for that. It's just you can't. It's available to you at no additional cost. So
awesome.
Friday to Saturday, Sunday, the 7th through the 9th.
And dogbrothers.com, right there on the homepage. We've got all the info there for you. Please go.
Yeah, and very experienced. Yes, it's Central PA, but you fly into either Pittsburgh or Philadelphia, and it's a puddle jump. On a plane. You'll be helped with the details. It's really very straightforward.
That's a college town. You guys will have a blast.
That's right. Lots of pretty young girls walking around.
Rock and roll.
Woof woof.